Welcome back to FP&A Done Right. I'm Ethan,
And I'm Emma.
and we're diving deep into scenario planning today.
That's right, scenario planning helping you navigate the uncertainty. You know all about finance, but we're going to give you even more tools for the toolbox to really help you succeed.
So we've got a bunch of different sources for this deep dive, a ton of insights and practical advice to help you, the finance professional, really master scenario planning.
Absolutely, so you can prepare for anything.
Okay, so first things first. What exactly is scenario planning? When we talk about that, what are we really talking about?
So it's kind of like you're building a strategy playbook, right? For all these different potential futures. You can't predict the future exactly, but you can be ready for different things.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, it's about thinking about those factors that really drive how your business performs, and then what happens if those factors change? What if things go differently than we expect?
So instead of one fixed plan, we're making a bunch of different plans.
Exactly. We're going beyond that one single projection. We're thinking about a range of possibilities, like what's the best case? What's the worst case? And most importantly, how do we respond in each of those situations?
I like that. Having those responses already figured out is crucial, right?
Right. Because traditional planning, that can get really static. You make this forecast and then something major happens and suddenly that forecast is useless.
Totally. And it's not just us speculating here. There's some pretty compelling data to back this up.
Oh, absolutely. A lot of finance execs actually admit their planning processes are not set up to deal with those rapid changes, whether it's the economy or, stuff happening on a global scale.
Yeah, it's definitely a big concern. So let's shift gears a bit and talk about the benefits of scenario planning. Why should finance teams embrace this? What's the value here?
Okay, well, first off, it makes you agile, like really agile. And I think we can both agree that agility is absolutely essential in business today.
No question about it. The world is changing so fast.
Right, and it's only getting faster with technology and everything else. So scenario planning helps you build up that ability to adapt, to pivot quickly when you need to.
So we're talking about proactively navigating those unforeseen obstacles, not just reacting to them after they hit us.
Exactly. And, there's even evidence that companies who did scenario planning weathered the 2008 financial crisis better. It's not like they predicted the crisis, but they had, modeled the impact of lower demand.
Interesting. So they already had some contingency plans ready to go.
Exactly. And that made all the difference. It's not about seeing the future. It's about being ready for different possibilities.
So agility is a big one. What else? What are some other key benefits?
Well, risk reduction. By considering those different scenarios, you're already thinking about the risks involved, and you can start to mitigate them. There was this survey, it showed nearly half of CFOs believe scenario planning actually helps reduce risk for the entire organization.
Makes sense. So it's a more proactive approach to risk management.
Yeah, and it's not just about avoiding specific disruptions, like trying to guess what the next crisis will be. It's about building scenarios around the potential impact.
Okay, following you.
So, for example, what if your supply chain gets messed up? You don't know exactly how it will happen, but you can model the impact of cost increases or delays, and then you've got plans in place for those scenarios.
Got it. So focusing on the impact, not the specific event itself. That's really smart.
It's about preparation, right? And that leads to better decision making. When you have a clear picture of the best case, the worst case, and everything in between, you can make smarter decisions, both strategic and tactical.
Absolutely. And all of this, it really strengthens the entire organization,
Yeah.
builds resilience.
That's it. Resilience. When you do scenario planning, you're forced to think about what really drives your business. You have to consider different departments, different perspectives. It's like a whole company exercise in being adaptable and ready for anything.
Okay, so we've got a solid understanding of why scenario planning is so important. How do we actually approach this effectively?
All right, first things first. Align with the top brass, the big priorities of the organization. What are the top 2 or 3 goals? It could be growth, profit margins, cash flow, anything. But you've got to talk to the exec team, other departments, and make sure your scenarios address those overarching goals.
It's a collaborative effort then.
Oh, definitely. And then you need to figure out those key drivers, the factors that really impact whether you achieve those goals.
How do we pinpoint those drivers? And it's about knowing which levers you can pull in the short term versus the long term.
Exactly. You got to be strategic about your time and resources. And don't forget to look outside your own 4 walls. You need to incorporate external data.
Right, like industry reports, competitor analysis, economic forecasts, all of that.
Exactly. You can even use tools to combine that external data with your internal data. It gives you a much more comprehensive picture.
I like that, a holistic view.
And then you need to decide how often you revisit your scenarios. Some things might change quickly, so you need to review them every week. Others might be more stable, so monthly or quarterly is enough.
It's about being flexible and responsive.
Absolutely. And, there's this approach, kind of a multi-phase approach to scenario planning that I think is really helpful.
Tell me more about that.
So first, you have the vision phase. This is where you brainstorm different possible futures. What are the key assumptions we're making? What could happen differently? Then you have the recognition phase. That's where you use your data and insights to figure out which scenarios are becoming more or less likely.
So we're constantly evaluating and adjusting.
Exactly. And then finally, there's the response phase. This is where you actually develop your plans, your actions for each scenario. And that's what gives you true business agility.
Okay, so we've talked about the what and the why of scenario planning, and now we've got a framework for the how. But let's talk about actually putting this into practice. What tools or resources can really help finance professionals with this?
Well, there's some great FP&A software out there that can make scenario planning a whole lot easier. Platforms like Workday Adaptive Planning, they have features specifically designed for scenario analysis. You can easily create and compare different versions of your plan, run what-if simulations.
So it takes a lot of the manual work out of the equation.
Oh, for sure. You can duplicate a forecast, make adjustments, and instantly see how it impacts your financials. It's a huge time saver.
But with all that power, I could see how it could be easy to get carried away with creating too many scenarios. How do we stay focused on what's truly relevant?
You've got to be disciplined. Don't just create scenarios for the sake of it. Always remember those key business drivers we talked about. Focus on the scenarios that address those core uncertainties.
So quality over quantity.
Absolutely. And when you're building those scenarios, ask yourself some specific questions. What if there's a major business interruption? What if competition heats up? What if customer demand drops?
Those are some pretty tough questions.
They are. But they'll help you zero in on the most important scenarios. How will these things impact your revenue, your costs, your workforce, your cash flow? And thinking through those questions is essential.
This has been really eye-opening. Emma, any final thoughts for our listeners?
Scenario planning, you can't predict the future, but you can be prepared for it. And when you're prepared, you can navigate uncertainty with confidence.
And that's what sets great finance professionals apart. Being proactive, thinking ahead, and having those plans ready. So for everyone listening, think about the top uncertainties your organization is facing right now. What scenarios can you start exploring today?
That's a great question to leave everyone with.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into scenario planning. We'll see you next time on FP&A Done Right.